The distress signal came through a back-channel relay, buried beneath layers of encryption that only the most seasoned mercenaries could recognize. Captain Elias Vance sat in the cockpit of his aging but reliable gunship, the Iron Fong, staring at the message flickering on his comm screen. The royal insignia of the Ilari Empire, a sprawling dominion of warlike but honorable reptilian aliens, hovered in the holographic projection. Below it, a simple, desperate plea. Heir abducted. War inevitable. You are our last hope. Elias leaned back in his seat, rubbing his stubbled chin. He wasn't in the business of working for monarchs, governments, warlords, rebels. He'd played the mercenary game for years, but a personal request from an alien queen? That was new. And dangerous. Still, the Ilari paid well, and if this was as serious as it sounded, the payout would be astronomical. He flicked open the details. The heir, Prince Varesh, had been kidnapped by a coalition of rival species, an alliance of old enemies hoping to cripple the Ilari before they could rally for war. A child caught in the crossfire. That was the part that got to him. War was one thing, but using a kid as leverage? That crossed a line. Elias let out a slow breath and sent his reply. Send me the coordinates. I'm in. The planet Zyphar 9 was a fortress world, home to the Zethari Dominion, a species of cold-blooded, highly intelligent insectoids known for their ruthless efficiency. If the prince was there, it wouldn't be a simple snatch and grab. It would be a full-on extraction from the most fortified prison in the sector. Elias studied the schematics provided by the Ilari Queen. He'd have to bypass a planetary defense grid, infiltrate a stronghold guarded by thousands, and escape with a high-value target, all without getting vaporized. So, naturally, he went in alone. Landing his ship on the planet's dark side, he donned his adaptive combat suit, a piece of cutting-edge human tech that adjusted its camouflage in real time. A few well-placed EMP charges took care of the perimeter drones. Elias moved like a shadow through the facility's outer layers, slipping past sentries with the grace of a veteran. Inside, the corridors pulsed with a bioluminescent glow. The Zethari didn't rely on screens or computers. Everything was organic, their technology a fusion of biology and machinery. Elias grimaced as he stepped over a shifting, vein-like floor. The prince was being held in cell block Theta, deep underground. Elias made quick work of the guards with a suppressed plasma pistol, his shots clean and precise. But the deeper he went, the harder the resistance became. The Zethari weren't fools. They had anticipated a rescue attempt, and they had prepared. The moment Elias entered the cell block, alarms blared. Dozens of Zethari warriors skittered into formation, their bladed limbs gleaming. The lead insectoid hissed, mandibles clicking in amusement. We knew someone would come, it rasped in Galactic common. We did not expect it to be human. Elias cracked his knuckles. Surprise. The fight was brutal. The Zethari were fast, their exoskeletons tough as starship hulls, but Elias had human ingenuity, something no algorithm, no biological machine, could predict. He fought dirty, using explosives, feints, and close-quarters combat to turn the tide. The hallway became a battleground of fire and gore. By the time he reached the prince's cell, he was bleeding, his armor damaged but functional. Prince Varesh, barely more than a hatchling, stared up at him with wide golden eyes. Your mother sent me, Elias grunted, overriding the lock. Time to go. The kid nodded, surprisingly composed. Getting out was a different story. Reinforcements were inbound, the facility's self-destruct sequence primed as a failsafe. Elias hoisted Varesh over his shoulder and sprinted through the collapsing corridors. He barely made it to the docking bay before a hulking Zethari warlord intercepted him. Towering over Elias, the creature wielded an electrified glaive, its multifaceted eyes filled with murderous intent. You will not leave this place alive, human. Elias exhaled, rolling his shoulders. I get that a lot. The duel was vicious, brute strength against human adaptability. Elias dodged, countered, fought with every ounce of skill he had. He took a glancing blow that sent pain lancing through his ribs. But in the end, humans didn't quit. With one final move, he plunged his combat knife into the warlord's throat, twisting hard. The Zethari collapsed. Elias didn't wait to watch it die. With alarms screeching and the facility on the brink of destruction, he boarded his ship, Iron Fong, gunning the engines as the hangar bay exploded behind him. Back on the Yalari homeworld, Queen Seraphis held her son close, her regal composure cracking as relief washed over her. "You have done what no Yalari could," she said, turning to Elias. "Name your price." Elias considered for a moment, then smirked. "Keep me on retainer. I have a feeling you're going to need a human around." The queen studied him, then nodded. And so, the legend of the human mercenary who saved the Yalari heir began. But Elias knew one thing. This was just the beginning. The deal was simple. Elias Vance was now the official foreign agent of the Yalari Empire. Unofficially, he was their only human mercenary, which made him both valuable and a target. After the rescue, Elias spent 3 days recovering in the royal palace, his wounds being treated by Yalari biomedics, who had a habit of scolding him in their sharp, guttural language. The prince, Varesh, kept sneaking into his room, watching him with those curious golden eyes. Elias figured the kid was trying to figure him out, the way a young predator studies something it doesn't yet understand. On the 4th day, Queen Seraphis summoned him. The throne room was massive, carved from obsidian stone, glowing faintly with energy conduits that ran through the walls like veins. The queen sat on her throne, dressed in ceremonial battle armor, because in Yalari culture, even their rulers had to be ready for war. Elias, dressed in his repaired combat suit, crossed his arms. "I assume this isn't a social call." Seraphis's reptilian features hardened. "No. The Zethari will not forget what you did. More importantly, neither will their allies." She gestured, and a holographic map flickered to life in the air. Several red markers appeared along the Yalari border. "The abduction of my son was not an isolated act of aggression," she continued. "The Zethari were working with a coalition, one that seeks to fracture my empire before Varesh can inherit it." Elias exhaled. "Let me guess. You want me to do more than just rescue princes now?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "You proved yourself capable. And humans are unpredictable. That is a weapon I intend to wield." The map zoomed in on a fortified outpost on the edge of the Arkunis Rift, a treacherous sector of space where sensors often failed. "We have intelligence that one of the conspirators, an exiled Yalari general named Threxos, has been gathering forces there. He is the one who helped orchestrate Varesh's abduction." Elias narrowed his eyes. "You want me to kill him?" "I want you to confirm his presence first," Seraphis corrected. And if the opportunity presents itself, she let the silence speak for itself. Elias smirked. "Subtle. Mission briefing. Arkunis Rift." The Iron Fong dropped out of hyperspace on the fringes of a dead system, its hull rippling with residual energy. Elias adjusted his ship's scanners, but as expected, the region was saturated with natural electromagnetic interference. That was why Threxos had chosen it. Ships could hide here. Elias engaged the cloaking protocols and brought his ship low, skimming over a barren moon. After a few minutes, he spotted something unnatural against the wasteland. A hidden base, partially buried in the rock. The defensive turrets were disguised as geological formations, but Elias wasn't fooled. Bingo! He set the ship down behind a ridge and switched to stealth insertion mode. His suit's adaptive camo shimmered, blending into the terrain as he made his approach. He needed to confirm Threxos's presence before calling in reinforcements. Crawling over the ridge, he activated his visor's magnification mode. Inside the base's hangar, a heavily armored Yalari warlord stood, flanked by mercenaries of various species. "Threxos, you ugly bastard," Elias muttered. But something else caught his attention. The warlord wasn't just amassing troops. He was negotiating with a delegation of Zethari. His blood ran cold. This wasn't just one rogue general gathering a force. This was the beginning of a war. Elias tapped a button on his wrist, transmitting a silent signal to the Yalari fleet. Then, he unholstered his rifle, took a deep breath, and prepared to do what humans did best: wreak havoc. Elias Vance crouched behind a rocky outcrop, scanning the hidden base below. The facility, buried beneath the jagged terrain of Arkunis Rift, was more than just an outpost. It was a staging ground for something far bigger. The rogue Yalari general, Threxos, stood in the hangar, surrounded by mercenaries and a delegation of Zethari diplomats, their insectoid features shifting under the dim light. Elias adjusted his visor, activating long-range audio enhancement to listen in. The Yalari grow weak, Threxos rumbled, his deep voice filled with disdain. Their queen is blinded by tradition, but I will forge a new path. The lead Zethari emissary tilted its head. And the human? He has made things difficult. Elias smirked. Mission accomplished. Threxos let out a low chuckle. He is just a wanderer, fighting battles that aren't his. If he is foolish enough to come here, he will be dealt with. Elias tapped his rifle. Let's see about that. With a single precise shot, he neutralized the nearest sentry, then dropped two more before the alarm blared. The hangar erupted into chaos as mercenaries scrambled for cover, shouting orders into their communicators. Find him. Now. Elias stayed on the move, using the confusion to his advantage. A well-placed charge sent a security drone offline, and he moved swiftly, taking cover behind stacked cargo crates. The Zethari warriors moved quickly, their segmented limbs making sharp, precise motions as they scanned the area. Elias took a deep breath and activated his adaptive camouflage, slipping further into the shadows. Threxos turned toward the commotion, scanning the area. Face me, human, he called, his presence towering over the others. Elias exhaled. All right, let's do this. He emerged from cover, raising his weapon. Threxos was fast, deflecting the first blast with his energy shield. The general advanced, wielding a massive energy staff that crackled with power. Elias rolled to the side, avoiding a powerful strike that sent a shockwave through the ground. Threxos was strong, but Elias had agility on his side. He sidestepped, countering with a precise shot to the general's armor plating, forcing him back. The battle was intense, a clash of speed and strength. With a final maneuver, Elias used his surroundings to his advantage, maneuvering around the general and disabling his defenses with a precision strike. Threxos staggered, his stance faltering. Elias tapped his earpiece. Target neutralized. Send in the reinforcements. Outside, the sky lit up as Yalari ships descended upon the outpost. The queen had sent backup. Her voice came through the communicator, steady and commanding. Vance, report. Elias glanced around the base, now in disarray. Mission accomplished. You won't have to worry about Threxos anymore. There was a brief pause before she spoke again. You have done well, human. Return to the capital. We have much to discuss. Elias allowed himself a small smirk as he made his way toward the extraction point. Something told him this was just the beginning. Elias Vance crouched behind a rocky outcrop, scanning the hidden base below. The facility, buried beneath the jagged terrain of Arkuni's rift, was more than just an outpost. It was a staging ground for something far bigger. The rogue Yalari general, Threxos, stood in the hangar, surrounded by mercenaries and a delegation of Zethari diplomats, their insectoid features shifting under the dim light. Elias adjusted his visor, activating long-range audio enhancement to listen in. The Yalari grow weak, Threxos rumbled, his deep voice filled with disdain. Their queen is blinded by tradition, but I will forge a new path. The lead Zethari emissary tilted its head. And the human? He has made things difficult. Elias smirked. Mission accomplished. Threxos let out a low chuckle. He is just a wanderer, fighting battles that aren't his. If he is foolish enough to come here, he will be dealt with. Elias tapped his rifle. Let's see about that. With a single precise shot, he neutralized the nearest sentry, then dropped two more before the alarm blared. The hangar erupted into chaos as mercenaries scrambled for cover, shouting orders into their communicators. Find him. Now. Elias stayed on the move, using the confusion to his advantage. A well-placed charge sent a security drone offline, and he moved swiftly, taking cover behind stacked cargo crates. The Zethari warriors moved quickly, their segmented limbs making sharp, precise motions as they scanned the area. Elias took a deep breath and activated his adaptive camouflage, slipping further into the shadows. Threxos turned toward the commotion, scanning the area. Face me, human, he called, his presence towering over the others. Elias exhaled. All right, let's do this. He emerged from cover, raising his weapon. Threxos was fast, deflecting the first blast with his energy shield. The general advanced, wielding a massive energy staff that crackled with power. Elias rolled to the side, avoiding a powerful strike that sent a shockwave through the ground. Threxos was strong, but Elias had agility on his side. He sidestepped, countering with a precise shot to the general's armor plating, forcing him back. The battle was intense, a clash of speed and strength. With a final maneuver, Elias used his surroundings to his advantage, maneuvering around the general and disabling his defenses with a precision strike. Threxos staggered, his stance faltering. Elias tapped his earpiece. Target neutralized. Send in the reinforcements. Outside, the sky lit up as Yulari ships descended upon the outpost. The Queen had sent backup. Her voice came through the communicator, steady and commanding. Vance, report. Elias glanced around the base, now in disarray. Mission accomplished. You won't have to worry about Threxos anymore. There was a brief pause before she spoke again. You have done well, human. Return to the capital. We have much to discuss. Elias allowed himself a small smirk as he made his way toward the extraction point. Something told him this was just the beginning. Elias sat in the cockpit of the Iron Fong, watching the distant glow of the Yulari capital city grow larger as he descended through the atmosphere. The city was a masterpiece of alien architecture, towers of dark obsidian lined with pulsating blue energy conduits, floating platforms shifting in coordinated patterns, and massive aerial docks filled with Yulari warships. The docking protocols were already in place. The Queen was expecting him. As the ship touched down, Elias grabbed his gear, stepping into the cool night air. Royal guards in sleek battle armor stood at attention, their golden eyes watching him carefully as he approached the palace gates. A familiar voice greeted him. You made quite an impression out there, human. Elias turned to see Varesh, the young Yulari prince, standing nearby, his posture more confident than before. The last time Elias had seen him, he was just a frightened child caught in a dangerous situation. Now, there was something stronger in his stance, a spark of leadership beginning to form. Still breathing, kid, Elias said with a small smirk. Guess that counts for something? Varesh nodded, then motioned for him to follow. Inside the palace, Elias was once again led into the grand throne room, where Queen Seraphis awaited. The atmosphere was heavier than before. Something had changed. She studied him for a moment before speaking. Threxos is gone. But the war he was planning has already begun. Elias exhaled sharply. I had a feeling it wouldn't be that easy. The Queen gestured toward a holographic display, showing multiple battlefronts across the Yulari Empire. Red markers blinked like warning lights, indicating active engagements. His death has only accelerated the plans of our enemies, she continued. The Zethari and their allies are moving quickly. If we do not act, the Empire will be torn apart before my son can take the throne. Elias studied the display, his mind already calculating the best course of action. What do you need me to do? He asked. Seraphis's gaze was steady. I need you to do what humans do best. Turn the tide of war in impossible situations. A new section of the hologram zoomed in on a strategic Yulari stronghold on the edge of contested space. The Zethari are attempting to seize one of our most valuable supply depots, she explained. If they succeed, they will gain the resources needed to launch a full-scale invasion. Elias nodded. Then I guess I'll have to stop them. Seraphis allowed a rare smile. You have already proven that one human can make a difference. Now, let's see what you can do with an army. Elias raised an eyebrow. An army? The doors behind him slid open, revealing a group of battle-hardened Yulari warriors, elite soldiers trained for planetary combat. Varesh stepped forward, his expression serious. I told you I wanted to learn how to fight. Now's my chance. Elias chuckled, shaking his head. Kid, you're gonna get me into a lot of trouble. Varesh smirked. That makes two of us. Elias looked back at the Queen, who simply nodded. This was no longer a simple mercenary job. He was now leading a strike force into battle. And if the Zethari thought humans were a problem before, They were about to learn what happened when a human led an army. War was coming, and Elias Vance was ready. The Yllari war fleet surged through the void, their sleek, obsidian-hulled ships cutting through the darkness like silent predators. Aboard the Iron Fong, Elias stood at the command deck, surrounded by Yllari tacticians and battle-ready soldiers. The mission was clear. Retake the outpost before the Zethari could secure it. Elias leaned over the holomap, studying the enemy formation. The Zethari fleet had already deployed ground forces, with fighter squadrons patrolling the airspace. The outpost itself was crawling with hostile forces, their insectoid warriors reinforcing key positions. Varesh, standing at his side in newly forged battle armor, exhaled slowly. "This won't be easy." Elias smirked. "Nothing ever is." The Queen's voice came through the comms. "Commander Vance, you are cleared to deploy. May the ancestors guide your strike." Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. "All right, people. Time to make history." The drop pods slammed into the planet's surface, kicking up dust and debris. Elias emerged first, rifle at the ready, scanning for hostiles. The battlefield was chaos. Yllari warriors clashing with Zethari soldiers, explosions shaking the ground as artillery fire lit up the night sky. Elias sprinted forward, his elite strike team following close behind. "Take the high ground. We need to cut off their reinforcements," he ordered, pointing toward a fortified ridge where Zethari gunners were raining fire down on their forces. Varesh, flanked by 2 Yllari shock troopers, nodded and charged toward the ridge, their weapons blazing. Elias, meanwhile, pushed forward through the trenches, using his combat knife and precision shots to clear a path. The Zethari fought with their usual relentless efficiency, their movements eerily synchronized, but Elias wasn't alone this time. The Yllari warriors fought harder, inspired by their human commander. The battle turned into a brutal push, but inch by inch, they advanced. Varesh's voice came through the comms. "We've secured the ridge. The enemy's flank is exposed." Elias grinned. "Then let's finish this." With the enemy's defenses collapsing, Elias led the final charge, storming the command center of the outpost. Inside, the Zethari commander stood waiting. A towering figure clad in reinforced exo-armor, his sharp mandibles clicking in amusement. "Human," it rasped. "You are an anomaly in the galaxy, but you will fall like all the rest." Elias cracked his neck. "Funny. I was just about to say the same to you." The final battle was fast, brutal, and decisive. Elias dodged a rapid strike, countering with explosive rounds that shattered the Zethari's armor. The commander lunged, razor-sharp claws slashing through the air, but Elias sidestepped, delivering a devastating strike to its exposed core. With a final shot, the Zethari leader collapsed. The battle was over. The Yllari had won. Days later, back at the capital, Queen Seraphis addressed the victorious warriors. "This war is not yet over, but today, we have struck a mighty blow against those who seek to destroy us. And we could not have done it without our greatest ally." She turned to Elias, the human who defied the odds. The Yllari warriors let out a thunderous battle cry of respect, and Elias simply shook his head with a grin. Varesh stood beside him, his posture strong. "So, what now?" Elias exhaled, looking at the stars above. "Now, we rebuild. We prepare. And if the Zethari come knocking again," he smirked, "they'll learn the hard way why messing with humans is a bad idea." The war wasn't over, but humanity had made its mark on the stars. And Elias Vance? He was just getting started.